Have you ever wondered what happens when someone accidentally swims into shark-infested waters? In our exciting series, we dive into heart-pounding stories of people who face these fearsome creatures and live to tell the tale. From narrow escapes to daring rescues, these true accounts will keep you on the edge. Watch until the end to see how each person survives chilling encounters with the ocean's most famous predators. In March 2001, college students, including John Andrews and Nicole White, chose Volusia County, Florida, as their spring break destination. Excited for a week of sun and sand, they looked forward to a break from university life. Unbeknownst to Michael Carter, he was also unwittingly selected as the target for their planned prank. The group chose a stretch of secluded beach away from the crowds. It was perfect for campfires at night and other daring adventures. The group was spirited as they set up camp beneath a starlit sky. The ocean was whispering only a few steps from their tents. On the third night, as the ocean breeze carried laughter from the group, Nicole, with a mischievous smile and twinkling eyes, suggested a harmless joke to make the evening memorable for Michael. Feeling adventurous, the group eagerly agreed. Always good-natured, Michael soon found himself at the center of a prank that would shift from fun to terror. Michael was absorbed in making s'mores, unaware of the whispered plots around him. They blindfolded him and pretended it was a joke before leading him to the water, where they gave him a little scare, pretending to push. They knew Michael would laugh off the joke, so they blindfolded him and led him to the water. Emily tied a bandana over Michael's eyes as they walked along the beach. She laughed as she assured him he would love what was coming. Guided by the hands of his friends, Michael laughed and joked, unaware that he was perilously close to the edge of the ocean. John pretended to stumble as he pushed Michael into the shallow waves. The group laughed, expecting Michael to join in. The situation quickly took a horrific turn. Michael's splashes grew frantic as he struggled to gain his footing, when a prominent shadowy figure appeared near Michael under the water's surface. The innocent laughter on the shore abruptly stopped. The commotion in the water and the shark's thrashing likely attracted the shark. As the reality of their danger dawned, panic replaced laughter. John was the first to react, his shouts of "shark" paralyzing the group with fear. However, the urgency of the situation quickly spurred them into action. Kevin, the first to recover, entered the water and urged Michael to remain calm. Simultaneously, Nicole, who recovered quickly, ran to their camp to grab a life buoy. Despite his fear, Kevin's voice remained steady as he reassured Michael, telling him to keep still while they worked to get him out. They threw the buoy towards Michael when Nicole returned with it. Kevin was the first to reach him and helped him hold on tightly to the buoy. They began to pull Michael back toward shore together, coordinated and desperate. The shark drew closer, its dorsal fin cutting through the water menacingly. Emily and John worked together on the shore, their combined strength slowly overcoming the ocean's pull. As they dragged Michael toward safety, everyone held their breath, a mixture of fear and hope hanging in the cool evening air. They finally pulled Michael away from the water's edge and onto the sand. His laughter was gone and he began to breathe heavily, relieved. They collapsed in front of him. Their prank had turned into a potentially life-threatening situation. The weight of the possible loss hung heavy in the air as they tried to calm their racing hearts. Michael lay on the sand beach, trying to catch his breath as the realization of his near-death experience sank in. The group gathered around him, the bonfire crackling in the background starkly contrasted with the fear and coldness that had just enveloped them. Faces paled under the moonlight as the friends remained silent. Each was lost in their thoughts. Nicole kneeled beside Michael with her hand on his shoulders, her voice barely audible, overwhelmed with guilt. Michael, clearly shaken, slowly sat back up and nodded in understanding. They were all too aware of the shark's shadow, a reminder of how fragile their joy had been. Kevin, who had been instrumental in pulling Michael to safety, paced along the water's edge, scanning the waves seriously, emphasizing the need for caution. Emily wrapped her arms around herself and nodded in agreement, sticking to more straightforward, safer activities like light hiking, beach games, and sunbathing, avoiding further scares. The ever-organized man John grabbed his phone and checked local shark activity warnings. He read aloud from an article dated the previous weekend about sightings in the area. They should have checked before deciding to go for a night swim or play any water prank. They agreed. A new pact was born from the terror of that night. The friends decided to spend the rest of their holiday strengthening their friendships while respecting the environment and its dangers. The following days went by without incident. The group played volleyball, visited local attractions, and told stories around a bonfire, this time keeping a respectful distance away from the edge of the water. Michael's experience became a lesson to them all. It reminded them of the importance and necessity of safety. Kevin suggested a final gathering around the fire on their last evening while packing their things. His tone was joyful and sad as he proposed finishing the trip on a good note. The warmth of the fire battled against the cold ocean breeze. John proposed a toast, raising his bottle in a gesture of camaraderie. As the glasses clinked together, smiles spread among the friends, each feeling grateful for a bond that had not only endured trials, but had grown stronger. The following day, as they left the beach, the sun rose above the ocean and painted the skies in shades of orange and rose. They were not blind to the beauty of this scene. The scene starkly contrasted with the dark and fearful night they had just experienced. It served as a reminder to them of both nature's beauty and peril. On the way back to school, they discussed their next vacation, this time in the mountains, to escape the unpredictable ocean. The laughter was back, but with a new appreciation for nature's forces and the unintended effects of a simple joke. Michael hugged his friends as they said goodbye. He laughed, but his smile was genuine and wiser. They laughed and agreed wholeheartedly. Their ordeal was behind them but not forgotten. In 2002, experienced free divers Jack Thompson and Maya Collins were gearing up for a remarkable underwater adventure in the serene waters of Hanauma Bay. With their extensive preparation, they were poised to explore the vibrant marine life in one of the most beautiful snorkeling spots in the world. Jack and Maya decided to indulge in their diving passion at Hanauma Bay. The bay is known for its beautiful coral formations, as well as an abundance of marine wildlife. After securing their masks and fins, they checked their belt-mounted air tanks explicitly designed for free diving. The tanks were designed to provide just enough air for quick dives, but they had to be careful with their use. As they entered the crystal-clear waters, their world changed. The noise of the beach ceased to exist and was replaced by their rhythmic breathing and distant sounds from underwater creatures. Corals spread beneath them like an alien landscape, vibrant with color and alive with life. Jack took the lead, and his confidence in navigating such an environment was evident in his strokes. Maya was close behind, wide-eyed with amazement as she watched the colorful fish dart between the corals, while the sea turtles glided past. The dive was tranquil and mesmerizing. As they swam deeper, they followed a school's bright yellow tangs and unknowingly reached a less traveled reef area. The water became more relaxed and the corals sparser. An ominous feeling began to settle on them. Jack abruptly stopped as he rounded a corner in the maze of coral. Maya nearly bumped into him. They saw dozens of juvenile sharks in the coral bushes and rocky crevices. Their sleek bodies blended into the sand. It was a nursery for sharks. Jack and Maya exchanged worried looks. They were aware that they had stumbled upon a shark nursery. Mother sharks would have been nearby and in a territory that could have been seen as a threat to the young. A shadow hovered over them as they considered their next move. A large female, probably a mother shark, slowly circled, her movements deliberate and cautious. Jack and Maya were still aware that sudden movement could trigger an attack. They watched as the shark's eyes seemed to assess their every move. Jack pointed to a narrow coral passage, realizing they were in danger. This was their best opportunity to make a quiet retreat. The sharks were on guard and needed to find a way back without causing any more alarm. They began carefully escaping, taking slow, measured breaths to conserve their air supply. Each move was calculated to be as non-threatening as possible. The mother shark circled, her presence constantly reminding them that they were in danger. The urgency of the situation increased as they navigated through the coral corridors. Their air supply was limited, and due to their depth and the complexity of the coral surrounding them, they needed help to reach the surface. Each second spent underwater increased the risk. Their escape became more than a matter of stealth but also survival. They moved like shadows, barely stirring the water, focusing on finding safety. The reef's beauty, once mesmerizing, was now a labyrinth that held them in its silent depths. The shark mother's looming presence remained a constant danger as Jack and Maya navigated cautiously through the coral maze. The passageway was twisted, with its openings decorated with sea anemones. Its branches of coral were also sharp. The divers had to be careful not to harm themselves or the marine life. As their air supply was dwindling between them, tension grew. Every breath they took felt like a clock ticking down their remaining minutes. Maya looked at her gauge and saw that it was dangerously close. She then glanced over to Jack, who seemed to be worried. Jack, who was aware of the urgency, took the lead. His eyes scanned for a safe route that could offer a rapid ascent without further alarming the shark. He remembered an area of the reef they had explored earlier, which might provide a safer route to the surface. He firmly motioned to Maya, telling her to follow him towards a less dense part of the reef, where the water was more apparent and the ascent easier. Sensing their movements, the mother shark increased her vigilance. Her passes became closer and her circling tighter. The shadows cast by the sun overhead on the water alerted her to the presence of the two. Jack and Maya would freeze each time she came near, holding their breath and minimizing their movement until she passed. As they neared the edge of the coral reef, the open ocean beckoned. Jack spotted a column of clear water in the distance, noticeably less populated with marine life, offering an ideal path for a discreet ascent. He checked his remaining breath, barely enough for the effort. Exchanging a reassuring smile with Maya, they both understood the urgency. It was now or never for their ascent to the surface. They seized the opportunity when they saw that the shark was temporarily hidden behind a large coral outcropping. They began their ascent by pushing off from the coral as quietly as possible. Each meter of ascent felt like a struggle, and their lungs were aching for more air. A sudden movement caught the peripheral vision of both halfway up. As the mother shark became aware of their escape from her, she accelerated towards them. Jack's grip was firm as he reached out to Maya and calmed her down. They increased their speed, their bodies streamlined to the resistance of the water. The last few meters were the most terrifying. Above them, the surface shone like a promise of safety. They were desperate for air, and their bodies were urging them to break the surface. But they knew that it was not a good idea to surface too soon for fear of decompression illness. Relief was palpable as they finally broke the water's surface, gasping for breath. The masks were removed and their faces were bathed by sunlight. They looked around. After the ordeal, they could now see the shore. It was a comforting sight. The two slowly approached it, still being cautious. Jack and Maya collapsed on the sand once they reached the shore. Their bodies were exhausted, but their minds were racing with adrenaline. Their eyes were filled with relief, fear, and a newfound appreciation for nature's power. The dive began as an exploration into beauty, but ended in a desperate struggle for survival. They knew that they would dive again, but only with a greater appreciation of the ecosystems and inhabitants of the ocean. They were not only escaping the shark, but also from their complacency when faced with nature's silent and imposing depths. The night was cold and dense with fog in late autumn of 2003, off the rugged coasts of Western Australia. The Sea Whisper, a fishing vessel, navigated cautiously through thick fog. Her lights barely cut through the white blanket that covered the sea. Captain Peter Walsh and his 4-member crew were returning home from a successful but exhausting fishing trip. The mood aboard the Sea Whisper was subdued. After days at sea, the crew was tired, including Liam O'Connor as first mate, Sarah Jensen as engineer, James McAllister, and Thomas Reed. The crew was eager to reach their home port before dawn and enjoy the warmth of their families. The crew was jolted out of their trance as the boat hummed along the still waters. The ship had hit something huge in the water. It wasn't a floating log or debris. A series of frantic bangs were heard against the hull after the impact. Captain Walsh's command echoed through the fog as he ordered the crew to activate the lights and investigate their collision. Liam swiftly grabbed a spotlight from the deck and aimed it toward the port side. His hands remained steady despite the rush of adrenaline. The light revealed a terrifying sight, a giant scaled shark thrashing in the water, its tail delivering powerful swipes against the hull of the Sea Whisper. The crew reacted with horror at the sight as the propeller of their vessel sliced the shark's dorsal. The animal's confusion and pain were palpable. Its dark eyes rolled wildly in the water as it struggled. Sarah's voice was tense as she pleaded for them to get away, noting that the agitated creature could cause further damage to the boat. Thomas was told to change their course by Captain Walsh, who nodded. As they tried to steer clear of the injured shark, it became apparent that the shark would not let them go quickly. It followed, with its tail beating furiously in the water, fueled by pain and aggression. James felt a chill down his spine as he watched the shark's relentless pursuit. Half to himself and half to anyone listening, he muttered that it seemed like the shark had a score to settle. The fog thickened as the Sea Whisper, trying to outrun an injured shark, drove forward. Visibility was reduced to almost nothing. The only sounds that could be heard were the thrashing of the shark and the struggling engine of the boat. Captain Walsh instructed calmly but firmly to keep the boat steady. They could not stop there. They needed to head to more transparent water in an attempt to lose the pursuing creature. The Sea Whisper, however, was in poor condition. Sarah went below to check the engine, hoping it would last until they reached safe waters. The crew was still on deck, and their eyes were straining to see through the fog. They were looking for any sign of the shark's next move. The tension was palpable as each wave crashed against the boat's hull. Each sound of water breaking on the hull served as a warning of the predator that lurked just out of sight. The crew was pinned between the merciless sea and the mariner's curse as the night went on. The situation aboard Sea Whisper became increasingly dangerous as the night went on. The fog thickened and enveloped the boat, dampening all hope for escape. Driven by instinct and pain, the shark continued to pursue the ship, with each attack more aggressive than the previous. Captain Walsh stood at the helm with his eyes fixed on instruments and a grim determination to navigate through the dense fog. The cold air was filled with rhythmic thuds as the shark's body crashed into the boat. Sarah looked worried when she returned from the engine. Although the engine held up for the moment, the strain from outrunning the shark had taken its toll. Fuel gauges were dropping faster than usual, a testament to their desperate flight through treacherous water. She informed the captain they could only keep up with this pace longer. They were burning fuel rapidly and the engine was overheating. Captain Walsh nodded with his jaw set. "We need a new strategy. We cannot outrun it, but we can outsmart him." Captain Walsh quickly gathered his crew and devised a dangerous strategy. The remaining flares on the boat would distract the sharks and give them enough time to escape to a nearby cove they had already passed. The shallow water of the cove made it unsuitable for sharks. Despite the tension, Liam and Thomas prepared flares with their hands still steady. On Captain Walsh's command, they fired the first flare in the night sky. The light arced across the water and landed a few meters away from the boat. Attracted by the sudden flash of light, the shark veered away from its course to follow the flare. Captain Walsh took advantage of this distraction and steered Sea Whisper towards the cove. The boat was lurching forward as the engine groaned under the strain. They were desperate to get to safety. The water slowed as they approached, and the bottom was visible through the fog clearing. When the shark realized its prey had escaped into less navigable water, it launched a final and furious attack on the boat. The Sea Whisper was shook violently from the bow to the stern. As the boat shuddered, everyone braced and grabbed onto anything they could. The massive shark scraped the boat's hull as its movements became more frantic. With great effort, Captain Walsh maneuvered his boat into the middle of the cove, where the water level was too low for the shark's attack to continue. The shark could not continue its attack and lingered on the cove's edge. It circled before turning around and disappearing into deeper waters. As tensions finally subsided, the Sea Whisper crew heaved a collective sigh. The crew of the Sea Whisper was safe for the moment, as they anchored themselves in the shallow cove. As dawn approached, the fog lifted and revealed the beautiful coastline. The crew enjoyed their surroundings as the sun rose, casting a golden glow on the water. They had been tested, and the ordeal strengthened their bonds. It also deepened their respect for sea creatures and the ocean. Captain Walsh turned to his crew and saw their faces, tired but grateful. He told them to secure the boat and then rest, acknowledging that they had earned it. The Sea Whisper crew and she remained in the cove as the sun rose, with the events of that night serving as a reminder of ocean unpredictability and the beauty and danger of their marine world. The annual surf competition in South Africa was underway on a sunny, bright day in 2006. As surfers displayed their skills, the beach was lined up with spectators. Their cheers filled the air. Emily Harris, 20, is a rising surfing star known for her fearless spirit and bold maneuvers. The atmosphere was electric as each surfer pushed themselves to the limit to impress the judges. Emily was next. Her heart pounded with excitement and nervousness as she paddled into the lineup. She waited patiently for the perfect wave. The announcer's voice cracked over the loudspeaker with a tone of urgency. "Attention, spectators and surfers. Satellite images just revealed a massive rogue swell approaching from the southeast. Please prepare yourself for possible evacuation." The horizon darkened before anyone could react as the massive wave inched closer, increasing with each passing second. As surfers paddled frantically towards the shore, Emily was caught in the swiftly approaching wave. The rogue wave swept Emily and her board in a swirling water storm. The force of the waves disoriented her and she struggled to keep her bearings. Emily surfaced, gasping for breath when the wave receded. Her board was still attached to her ankle with the safety leash. Emily realized she was far from the competition zone as she wiped salt water from her eyes. She could not hear the cheers or announcements from the crowd. The coast was just a faint line in the distance. She floated alone in the vast ocean. Emily, trying to remain calm, scanned the area. She was horrified to discover that she had entered a shark feeding area. The water was darker and signs of a sudden drop on the ocean bottom were visible through the clear waters. She was horrified as she recalled the stories about great whites patrolling this area. She floated in the water, waiting for assistance to arrive. A dark shape caught her attention. Untethered, a large fin cut through the surface of the water. The great white shark was now in her midst, probably attracted by the commotion of the waves. Emily's training kicked into gear. She knew that sudden movements could trigger an attack. She used her hands to stabilize her position gently and measured her movements. Emily knew the chaos caused by the rogue waves would delay rescue, so she knew she needed to use her surfing skills and wits to survive. She placed her board to be as visible from the air as possible while watching the shark's movements. She prayed for help as each pass felt like an eternity. The situation was grave. Emily was alone, far from safety and surrounded by an infinite sea. Her life hung in the balance when she faced the ocean's most formidable predator. Emily's challenge was to survive the shark and maintain hope and courage despite overwhelming fear. Her mind was racing with solutions. She remembered that she had read that keeping eye contact with the shark can sometimes deter them since they are used to attacking unwitting prey. In this light, she kept her gaze on the shark and made herself as large as possible on her board. After the initial shock of being alone began to fade, her skills as a surfer became more apparent. Emily used her water current knowledge to subtly and slowly maneuver her board toward a nearby coral reef she had previously noticed. The reef could provide some shelter, making it more difficult for the sharks to approach. The sun started sinking towards the horizon, casting a golden glow on the water. The beauty of that moment contrasted with the terror she felt. Emily was a mixture of fear and awe, with her life hanging in the balance between both. She heard the distant hum from an engine. She squinted in the sun, trying to find the source. The rescue jet ski was part of the safety crew for the competition, and it was speeding toward her. Emily waved her hands frantically to get the driver's notice while still keeping an eye on that shark. The jet ski driver navigated the turbulent waters with ease. Emily saw the relief in the eyes of the rescuer as he approached, a reflection of her relief. He shouted above the engine's roar, assuring her they would get her out of the situation. Considering the shark's proximity, Emily carefully shifted weight to get on the jet ski. He helped her to the surface with a firm but reassuring grip. She had barely settled behind him when he began to accelerate away, his powerful engine cutting the waves on their return. Emily could feel the tension leaving her body as the shore approached. As they saw Emily safely return, the crowd gathered on the beach cheered. Her competitors ran to her and greeted her with relief and admiration. Emily's gratitude was overwhelmed when she finally reached solid ground. The sun was setting, and the colors of the sky were orange and purple. Emily turned back to the ocean. It was the most terrifying experience of her life. But it also reinforced her awe and respect for the sea, a powerful, unpredictable force. Emily's story quickly spread that night as the competition ended and participants celebrated. It was a testament to Emily's courage and her survival. She understood that the ocean was a constant in her life and the need to respect it. Her encounter with the white shark will forever serve as a reminder of how thin the line is between adventure and danger. The Great Barrier Reef was bathed in a warm Australian sun, creating shimmering patterns that reflected off the white sands. Liam Baxter led a small group of snorkelers to explore a lesser-known section of the reef. The vibrant colors of the water were teeming with marine life. Liam guided the group expertly with his many years of experience. The snorkelers eagerly followed in their wetsuits and bright colors, admiring the coral structures, the vibrant life, and the busy activity around them. The divers were a mixture of nature lovers and thrill seekers, with cameras ready to capture this underwater spectacle. As they delved deeper into coral reefs, the water became more intense, and the coral formations complexed. Between the coral reefs, fish of all colors darted, and sea turtles glided gracefully. The world beneath the waves was a hidden paradise that held endless wonders, unbeknownst to the group. However, they drifted to a remote area of the coral reef, away from the usual snorkeling routes. Liam checked his GPS after noticing the changes in the current of the water and the types of coral. He was concerned when he realized they were too close to known bullshark territory. Bullsharks are standard on the Great Barrier Reef, but are known for their unpredictable behavior. A large shadow moved below the group as Liam considered their next step. A massive bullshark was visible in the water. Its muscular body easily cut through the water, and its eyes revealed nothing about its intentions. The group's tranquility was shattered. Through snorkels, gasps were muffled, and fearful eyes widened. Liam beckoned everyone to remain calm and close. He knew that panicking would only provoke the shark. Liam's hand signals instructed the group to stay with him and slowly return to the vessel. His calm demeanor soothed the group, yet tensions remained palpable. The shark circled them as they swam back. Each of the loops it made was meticulous and almost curious. Liam watched the shark closely, looking for any changes in its behavior that could indicate an impending threat. The group moved together with deliberate and controlled movements. It was a long way to the boat's safety, so every stroke felt risky. The shark's presence was a stark and unsettling reminder of how unpredictable the ocean can be. The line between admiration and fear blurred as the group navigated through the stunning yet menacing coral reef. The group was intruders in the territory of one of the ocean's most powerful predators. As the bull shark's shadow loomed below, the journey back to their boat was long and slow. The vastness and safety of the ship felt distant. The reef life continued to thrive as they swam. This was a stark contrast to the drama that unfolded at the surface. The group was tightly grouped, and their eyes were occasionally drawn downwards to the shadow below them. The giant, imposing bull shark continued to make slow, deliberate movements, reminding them of the danger of their situation. Liam led with calm urgency and navigated the water with accuracy. His experience on these waters was now their most significant asset. He checked over his shoulder to ensure no one was lost or behind. The dark shark shape was visible in the stark white sand, adding to the surreality of the situation. As they approached the boat, water began to swell slowly, with sunlight penetrating the depths, illuminating coral landscapes below. The beauty of coral reefs was almost mocking compared to their fear. Liam pointed up, signaling their approaching proximity to the boat. He urged everyone to speed up gently to avoid splashing, which could further provoke the follower. As if sensing the group's intent to escape, the shark tightened its circle, making its movements more purposeful. Each member of the group felt their tension rise with each shark pass. The sleek shape cut through the water with a grace that belied its strength. As the boat became visible, the group began to murmur in relief. Liam's look at the stern of the ship quickly stopped the murmur, reminding everyone they were unsafe. The group approached the stern where the latter was silently waiting in the water. Liam lifted the first snorkeler while his eyes were constantly scanning the surrounding water. One by one, the group climbed on board, feeling relieved as they stepped onto the deck and discarded their snorkel gear before collapsing into the benches. Liam was the last person to leave. and he kept an eye on everyone until he knew they were all aboard safely. He climbed out of the water only after he felt his body relax as his feet touched the deck. After being alerted, the boat's skipper started the engine. The sound was a soothing growl in the silence of the ocean. The group gathered around the boat's stern as it began to move. They watched the shadow of a bull shark disappear into the depths. It was no longer interested in the humans now that they were outside its territory. Each person was lost in their thoughts as they processed the experience. Liam briefed the group, his voice steady but his eyes reflecting the intensity of the last hour. He looked each person in the eye, emphasizing the respect that must always be shown to the ocean and all its inhabitants, acknowledging their fortune that day. The sounds of nature, such as the crashing of the waves, the calls of seabirds, and the roar of the ocean, became louder and more intense. As the group disembarked from the ship, their goodbyes were more heartfelt. Their experiences had brought them together profoundly and unexpectedly. The bull shark circle reminded them of the line separating adventure from danger in the vast ocean. Michael Turner paddled gently through the calm, icy water as the sun sank behind the rugged mountains in a remote bay of Alaska. The tranquil environment, with its vast stretches of water, dense forests, and occasional cries of an eagle in the distance, offered the perfect escape to the bustle of city life. Michael, a keen outdoorsman, enjoyed these solo trips. He felt a connection to nature and peace that he couldn't find anywhere else. The bay was known for its wildlife and breathtaking views, but it was remarkably tranquil as dusk approached. Night slowly approached as the sky painted itself in shades of orange and lavender. Michael watched the seabirds dive for their food and observed the salmon leaping in the air. He was so engrossed in his surroundings that he forgot about the dangers lurking beneath the surface. This bay in the north was cold and deep. It is home to many marine species, including sharks. Shark encounters are rare, but salmon and other fish can attract curious predators to the shore. Michael was lost in his thoughts and shocked when his kayak suddenly shook. The impact was powerful enough to cause the kayak to tip dangerously one way. He was thrown into the freezing waters before he had time to react. Gasping with shock from the cold water, Michael struggled to find his way. His heart began to pound as he realized how serious his situation was. He was trapped in icy waters with his kayak flipped over beside him. Michael struggled against the cold and the panic that was building. Still, he managed to get up, holding on to the kayak's overturned hull. The dim light made it difficult to see what hit him. The dark figure was a shark. Its dorsal blade cut through the water's surface before disappearing. A wave of fear swept through Michael when he realized that there was a shark nearby. Michael was under time pressure to take action. The cold water was sapping Michael's strength, and nightfall only made his situation more dangerous. He reached out for the kayak with trembling hands and tried to correct it. He was clumsy and frightened, his movements splashing water in the process. Michael's thoughts raced while he worked. Michael knew remaining calm was essential. Any frantic movement could trigger a more aggressive reaction from the shark. Now his survival depended on the ability to think clearly and to paddle safely to shore before the shark turned his curiosity into a hunting expedition. Michael's fingers were numb from the cold, and he gripped the kayak as it flipped over. His breaths were short and ragged. Michael's energy was dwindling with each attempt to turn the kayak around. But he knew that he could not stop. The shark was a constant reminder to him of the danger he faced. Michael used his last bit of strength to push the kayak. It began to slowly turn around, with water pouring down its hull. He steadied his kayak with his hand, careful not to create any more splashes that might draw the shark to him. Michael stopped paddling the kayak once it was stable. He took a breather and tried to calm down his racing heart. He strained his eyes to look for the fin in the darkness. The silence was deafening, only broken by the lapping water and his heavy breathing. The shark appeared to have vanished momentarily, giving him an opportunity. He carefully positioned himself to climb into the kayak. He was careful to move slowly and deliberately, balancing caution and haste. He sat down in the kayak and let relief wash over his body. However, he was still aware of how dangerous it could be. Michael looked at the horizon to find the closest point of land. In the dimming light, the shore appeared far away, but he couldn't help himself. He grabbed his paddle, which was floating nearby, and started paddling as hard as possible. The fear and adrenaline that fueled each stroke kept his eyes darting about, looking for the shark. As he paddled, the sky darkened more, and stars began to illuminate the twilight. As the temperature dropped, his bones became even more chilled. Michael's training told him to keep a steady pace and conserve energy to avoid capsizing. The dark form of the shark suddenly reappeared and cut through the water parallel to his kayak. Michael's heart was pounding as he froze in mid-stroke. The shark was not charging, but its silent, close passes reminded Michael of its unpredictability and power. Michael knew that stopping was out of the question. He took a deep breath and resumed paddling. His strokes were even and controlled. His eyes were fixed on the dark waters. The shark circled, but slowly it lost interest. Its passes became less frequent and eventually stopped altogether. The faint outline of the coast was visible after what seemed like an eternity. Michael felt more relief with every stroke that brought his boat closer to the shore. The sight of land gave him new energy. His body and mind were exhausted from tension. He finally reached the shallows and pulled himself and his kayak to the beach. He collapsed onto the sand and lay down, gazing at the sky and breathing heavily. He knew the danger was over, but would never forget what happened that night. Michael was sure he'd kayak again, but not without a newfound respect for the dangers lurking beneath the surface, even in the calmest waters. He had overcome one of his greatest fears tonight. The experience shook him, but it also made him more appreciative of the unpredictable and wild nature of the ocean.